Welcome back from the break. I'm Uday Pratap Singh. A major escalation in the Strait of Hormuz has taken place as the U.S. has now begun enforcing a full-scale naval blockade on all maritime traffic entering and exiting Iranian ports. Following the expiration of its deadline, U.S. forces are now actively controlling, or at least trying to control, movement around the strategically critical Strait of Hormuz, a route that carries a significant share of the world's oil supply. U.S. President Donald Trump has claimed that the Iranian Navy has been completely wiped out, alleging that 158 ships are now, as per him, lying at the bottom of the sea. Trump has also issued a stark warning, saying any Iranian vessel approaching the U.S. enforced blockade will be immediately eliminated, signaling a zero-tolerance posture from Washington. The situation in the Middle East now hangs by a thin wire after failure of the talks in Pakistan. Will this escalate further and lead to the war resuming is the big question. John Rossomando, president of Viking Research Associates and geopolitical expert, is joining us live from Washington, D.C. Welcome. Thank you very much for being with us today. John, let me begin by asking you about what this means now. The deadline has lapsed that the U.S. president had set. What now really comes into effect? And how is this going to pan out practically in the waters there?
Well, right now the president has chosen blockade as a way to, choke the Iranian economy, which has been, what his critics and friends have been talking about for the past month. I mean, in the past, blockades have been an effective means of choking enemy economies, like during the American Civil War, during World War One. British versus the Germans, and so forth. So there's hope, but I don't think that this will have the desired impact because the religious fanaticism of the IRGC.
Absolutely. And also now we've seen a fresh warning being issued by the U.S. president just a few moments ago after that deadline lapsed to any and all ships. He's claimed, of course, that most of them are lying at the bottom of the sea, but he's, of course, admitted that there are several that still remain, in the waters. What do you make of this fresh warning that has been issued by the U.S. president after the deadline lapsed?
Well, I mean, President Trump is trying to, keep the optics when the IRGC Navy still has hundreds or dozens of small craft that can harass shipping, can engage in suicide attacks, fire missiles, and so forth that the United States is going to have to deal with. You had reports over the weekend that the U.S. Navy sent underwater drones to hunt and destroy Iranian mines in Omani waters. So I think that there's a lot that's going to happen. And a resumption of the war, as it was up till a week ago, is very much on the table.
Well, absolutely. Let me, in fact, quickly also ask you then about, how this is really going to pan out. Because obviously Iran has also indicated that they are not going to allow this to happen. They're saying this is piracy, this is illegal, and this will be blocked.
Well, let's put it this way. If we want to talk about piracy, under the UN Convention of the Law of the Sea, Iran has no right to shut down the Strait of Hormuz, has no right to mine Omani waters, to force shipping into Iranian waters. I mean, there's no difference at this point between the IRGC and the Somali pirates. So it's kind of a bit of projection. The United States is engaging in a blockade to force the Iranians to end their piracy. There's really nothing more to be said about this. I mean, as far as the United Nations Security Council is concerned, it's pretty much useless because Iran's allies, China and Russia, have issued vetoes on anything to do with it, also France. So, I mean, unless you have those countries standing aside to do something about this piracy, nothing can get done. So the United States is doing what it can.
Yes. Also, John, as far as, of course, the UK is concerned, they have said they will not be part of this blockade. They backed out. Is that a setback?
I mean, the UK right now, I mean, is a shadow of its former self. I mean, it has more admirals than it does ships in the Royal Navy, and Keir Starmer is a socialist, so he's not interested in being part of it. It's also causing the U.S. problems with Diego Garcia, which is where our main bomber base in the Indian Ocean.
Okay, let me in fact quickly ask you also, John, about the fact that right now we are going to be seeing, of course, this very volatile situation over the next 24 to 48 hours. How many aircrafts, ships, and other assets have been moved by the U.S. strategically to the region, also close to the region, for some, for some strategically important maneuvers if needed?
Well, I mean, the United States has about 50,000 troops in the region, including refueling tankers, bombers, the good portion of the Fifth Fleet. I mean, you had U.S. Amphibious warships moving into the Persian Gulf over the weekend to dispatch drones to clear the mine. So I think the United States is in a position where it can hold back. But I think the wild card right now is China. I mean, how is China going to react if we impound ships heading to China?
Yes. Also, John, as far as, of course, the okay, last question to you. I'm being told we have another guest joining us who I'm going to quickly introduce as well. John Rossamando, final question to you on whether you believe this is something that is likely to be successfully achieved. Is this just tough talking during the period of the ceasefire to get a deal through, or is this something that you believe can be practically achieved on ground, this blockade?
Well, I think this blockade is, worthless unless you also have an air blockade. I mean, you've seen over the weekend, Chinese cargo planes bringing in missiles, and the reports of smuggling man portable anti-air missiles via Pakistan into Iran. So, unless the United States considers both a land and an air blockade, this is going to be, half-assed measure.
Thank you, John, for joining us. Rossamando, for your perspective on this story. Sohail Abbas Sarani is also with us live, Islamic scholar. Welcome. Thank you very much for being with us today, Sohail. This blockade, the U.S. claims, has now begun. It is in effect. The U.S. president has issued a threat as the deadline lapsed. How do you view this?
Rahim. Adab and namaskar to you and the fellow panelists and all your viewers. Well, see, it is very clear from the very beginning that this was illegal war to begin with, right? And this illegal war, without any justification, United States of America, along with Israel, they continued their hostilities in this area. And when Iran started to retaliate, with its legitimate right, and one of them was the key part was controlling Strait of Hormuz. Again, the Strait of Hormuz, as we all know, it is part of the territorial water of Iran. It's not international water, right? That small strait, which is about 20 to 21 nautical miles. So you know the technical details, but that part Iran can control anytime, even without war also. They can control. There is something called innocent passage rule and everything, right? They can allow everybody, and they should allow. But during the time of war, it is very obvious that the hostile forces will not be allowed. So they have made it very clear from the very beginning that everyone is allowed to pass from there except for US and Israel. So this is where we are now. When United States of America, when they exhausted all military possibilities, they attacked right and left. From the very beginning, this illegal war, when it started, from the very beginning, they assassinated head of the state. And while there was a negotiation going on, and at the same time, they killed 168 girl childs, school children. And then it continued, they started destroying civilian infrastructure. And Iran also retaliated with eye for an eye, or even later on head for an eye methodology, but without even destroying the schools and hospitals of the other party. And for the infrastructure as well, by early warning that, okay, you empty the Amazon building, or you empty, for example, other facilities where we are going to attack. So it continued that retaliation from Iran, and USA exhausted all the possibilities. At the end, Mr. Trump, he just gave a warning, which, like, end of civilization. So that warning was answered in the word by Iran, saying, like, if you do anything, any such kind of thing, then we have right to retaliate in like, and we can just destroy all the power plants in the region, your allies basically, starting with Israel. So when it was at a stalemate point, the whole negotiation came into picture with the mediation of Pakistan. So Iran, of course, from the very beginning, they were never the aggressor to start with. Even now also, after, like, it is very evident and very clear that USA has broken this ceasefire in practical terms, but Iran hasn't responded as such in terms of military action, other than blocking the Strait of Hormuz. So when this happened, Iran was ready for the peace talk, as always. And they said, okay, let's give a chance to this peace talk. So they gave 10 points to them. And those 10 points initially were agreed by USA, but later on, to sum it up, like, very briefly, later on, as it happened in Pakistan, those were, not accepted by USA. And they were still hoping to get more leverage from Iran. And they were, hoping to control Strait of Hormuz, basically their colonial project in a way. They wanted to continue on that. So the last, I guess, that this is the last card they probably have, which is, again, in my opinion, is very, for the lack of a better word, it's very stupid thing that they are going to do, and they have done, blocking of naval blockade.
Yes.
Because that is not going
But
to
how are you
Iran.
going to counter this, Sohail? Because obviously IRGC has given a warning as well that this is illegal. You're claiming this is piracy. How are you going to counter this on ground and in the water, rather?
So on one side, Iran is fighting a battle of principle, right? So on one side, their point is very clear. I'm going to come to that point, like how they are going to counter, but we should understand this point very well, that Iran has a principle stand where it says that I'm not going to subjugate, I'm not going to surrender at any cost. If there's zero enrichment, I mean, everybody has seen, like, how Mr. J.D. Vance is talking. He says, like, he's giving an example of his wife. He's saying, like, if my wife has right for skydiving, it doesn't mean that she can do that without my permission. I mean, Iran is not your wife. I mean, you are in the wrong house. If you can control your wife. So Iran's position is very clear from the very beginning that we are going to take the principal stand, no matter what it takes. It has already taken so much from Iran in terms of material aspect, but they are still standing with their whole power, with their whole resistance, basically. Now here, in this case also, from the very beginning, it was asymmetrical warfare. So how they are going to tackle this? With the same process. They are claiming that Iranian Navy is gone and everything. We have heard this so many times. It has been destroyed. I don't know, like, how many times they have claimed that it has been destroyed. But just like day before yesterday, two of the destroyer from USA, they had to go back from the Gulf of Oman after IRGC warning, which my fellow panelist, he just called religious fanatic. And on the other side, we see Trump is posting on his Truth Social the picture of, as if, like, he's portraying himself as Jesus, right? So we can clearly see what is happening here, and so Iran will continue.
Right.
The same method will continue.
Right. Now, do you also believe that this is psychological warfare to try and pressure you all into making a deal? And is that deal going to happen soon?
Well, I would say, what was the bigger threat? Was it end of civilization was a bigger threat, or this naval blockade? Of course, end of civilization was a bigger threat. So that didn't do anything. So what this is going to do? This is going to do. I mean, this is very clear. There won't be any psychological pressure as such. Even when there was a talk of negotiation, the people, because Iranian, the strength of Iran is not only Strait of Hormuz, not their missile and drone program, their asymmetrical warfare. The biggest strength that Iran has is people. Like all 90 million, they are on the street. They are demanding that we don't want to surrender. We don't want to take orders from anybody. The whole point, they talk about regime change. So the whole point about this Iranian regime, as they call it, which is a full-fledged government, popular government, I would say, one of the most popular government, and particularly in this region. The whole ideology of the regime, as per them, is freedom, independence. They call it in Farsi. They called Azadi, Istiqlal, Jamhuri Islami. Istiqlal, Azadi, Jamhuri Islami. So they are not going to, they are not going to negotiate on those fundamental principles. Of course, they are independent. Nobody can dictate the terms like why you should not, be allowed to enrich uranium. So this is never going to happen, no matter what. Now, if they put psychological pressure, let them do that. Now here the point is, they are basically playing a game where they might expect that Iranian will bow down because of the economic pressure. So this kind of has shifted from military side to economic side. And this economic, like who will blink first? That is the whole point. Who will blink first in terms of economy?
Sohail Abbasarani, thank you very much for joining us with your perspective on this.
Thank you.
Let me also bring in now Major General Gigi Dwivedi, defense expert, who's live with us. Major General Dwivedi, clearly, of course, the blockade is now in effect. How are things really going to pan out now, according to you, on ground?
Firstly, Uday, thanks for having me on the show. I just wanted to clarify, is there only one question or you have a follow-up question? I will accordingly frame my answer.
Well, just one question for you, sir, and then we have Captain Kumar as well, and then we're going to take a break.
Okay, then if you one question, then I'll give you a very
comprehensive answer. Yes, please.
Holistic answer.
Please.
Yeah. The first and foremost today, we need to understand as to why the talks collapsed. The main issue were two. One was the uranium enrichment, and second was the Strait of Hormuz. Now, Strait of Hormuz is the center of gravity, and President Trump or US planners have realized there's no point bombarding the Iranian mainland because that is not paying enough returns, they're diminishing returns. Now they have decided that let's go for the Strait of Hormuz, which is actually a game changer. Now, point is that currently, what is this profile? Profile is that Iran is now controlling the Strait of Hormuz, and they have some kind of a semi-blockade there. Now, what the American strategy is, now do a counter-blockade, means put a blockade right across the Persian Gulf or the Gulf of Oman. Now, that is point number one. Now, how is it going to play out? See, this is their strategy is now that once your talks have failed or not fructified, now both sides are going to build pressure. The American pressure is on the Strait of Hormuz, and they are going to posture, and they are quite prepared to use certain quantum of military force, not overwhelming. Now, they already have two amphibious groups. The Tripoli Boxer are there. They have the airborne forces there. They have the aircraft carrier there. They have about 8 to 10,000 amphibious troops. So options today with America are, first and foremost, clear the mines so that the strait is navigable. Second point is that try to shoot out any opposition or any military action by the Iranians. And here I like to state two important points. Iranian Navy is almost defunct, but they can resort to asymmetric warfare. That is, use drones, use small-scale midgets or commando boats, and also use certain missiles or the some systems of that kind. So therefore, what we are going to see, Uday, one is that there will be escalation, but controlled escalation. Second, the Strait of Hormuz is going to be contested because America cannot have a free run. And the third very important point is that we have to see now how far it escalates, because if it escalation becomes, I think, more than the normal, or it goes beyond the normal, then there'll be a very serious situation that will be developing. But I just read an article today in Indian Express. My take is that there'll be calibrated escalation. At the same time, there'll be pressure brought on Iran on the Strait of Hormuz so that when they come to the negotiation table again, well, America has the upper hand, but we cannot predict well whether the Iranians will give way or they will contest. But all said, Strait of Hormuz will be contested in next couple of days, and this will decide the further course of negotiations. Uday.
Okay, let me quickly get in Captain Sham Kumar as well, who's with us now, former Navy officer. Captain Kumar, how is this going to play out in the sea now? Is there going to be, you believe the strategic redeployment which is going to happen of US and Iranian vessels on ground? Is this going to be more about psychological warfare, pressure building tactics and actual war at sea, or is it difficult to predict right now?
Thank you, Uday. Jai Hind, Sharavaruna. When we say redeployment, I would say very few people realize that the war was actually on Gulf waters, not on Iran. It was a stepping up. You have to annihilate a country to take charge of the waters. It's a naval warfare from the day one, and it was stopped on the day of Qatar last time. After that, there have been a lot of preparations on it. So we will be seeing a lot of new actions with the naval warfare. People who are at naval warfare, they are little bit aware, but there will be a lot of things which will happen first time. Why I'm saying so? Central Command reorganized way. People bought in the places, whether it is special operations, amphibious groups, minesweeper people specialized into it, whether it is Admiral Brad Cooper, whether it is General Christopher, or things like that. From White House to the Central Command, whether Israel brought from Eurocom to the Central Command. He attended all the meetings for 5 years from last. Baden and Lord Austin prepared all this before that. And it is a naval warfare. It was just to, you have to softening the beach, and the beach, the entire Iran is the beach.
Right.
So they annihilated Iran in the first phase. 40 days of testing and tuning. In the Bible, it is said, Jesus Christ did fasting for 40 days for Suddhikaran. So he did it, and now they are reset. So it is I wrote an article about 10 days back about this blockade thing.
Yes.
It had to happen. Iran was lured into state of
I'm afraid
Hormuz.
we've run out of time. Captain Kumar, thank you very much for joining us with your perspective on this segment. We're taking a very short break. Much more coming up on the other side.